Shalom. This is your humble servant, Sion. Thank you for listening once again. I would like to share with you what the parasha of this week, and what the Lord have laid upon my heart. And the parasha for this week is called Lech-Lecha, and it is taken from Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to chapter 17, verses 27. Lech-Lecha means in Hebrew, for you go or leave. It literally means go for you. And Abraham was called out. He was called out from the nations. He was called out from his family. He was called out from apostasy. He was called out from the worshiping of other gods. And he established the monotheistic idea at the time, because many people at the time of Abraham, including his father and his brothers, they worship idols. And we're going to prove that throughout this parasha, that we can verify some things. There are some things to notify also. From Adam to Noah is 10 generations. And then from Noah to Abraham is 10 generations. And we can see that both of these two men, they exemplify some similar attitudes and similar characteristics. They both were more or less fathers of the nations. Adam was the first father and the descendants of Adam. Then we had Noah. All the flesh died, and then Noah had 3 sons, except Noah and his 3 sons, and Noah became the father of the entire human race. Then you have Abraham become the father of all of the redeemed. Everyone that will be saved in the future, Abraham would be their father. These 2 men, Noah, the father of the Gentiles, the father of the nations, of the 70 nations. Abraham will be the father of all of the redeemed. And he came in the 10th generation from Noah, Abraham. And there's something interesting to notify here. In the Hebrew letters, the Yud in the Hebrew letter is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and that letter represents the number 10. So that represents Noah and Abraham being the 10th generation. Also, the Yud is also representing humility, humble. And these 2 men, they humbled themselves to the will of God while the other nations was rebelling. The other people were rebelling in the days of Noah. The other people in the time of Noah, the nations, the people of that time, they rebelled against God, and they got corrupt and they disobeyed God, while Noah humbled himself and obeyed God and found favor and grace in the eyes of God. Now Abraham is doing the same thing in the 10th generation. He humbled himself, and God started to pronounce some blessings upon Abraham, and he became the father of many nations, and he would also be the father of all of the redeemed. And that's what Abraham eventually became to represent. We have the word Yud also means the arm or the hand. They were the hands of God, basically to redeem humanity. Noah was like the hands of God. God used him. God revealed to him and made a covenant with him to save humanity in building the ark and the sign of the rainbow. Abraham, God made a covenant with him to save the nations, to be the mechanism or the catalyst or the means where the nations will be saved. It's important to understand that. And that's what the Yud represents, the arm or the hands of God also. So it pays to be humble. When you're humble, God uses you. The Lord exalts the humble, and he brings down low the proud. Also, the meaning of the Yud as 10 There were 10 things created on the first day of creation and 10 things created on the end of the sixth day of creation. There were also 10 generations from Adam to Noah. It suggests that the godlessness of these generations was made complete. And therefore, God raised up Noah to save, to be a mechanism. His arm brought salvation. These men humbled themselves to the God of creation and was used to bring salvation to those that were obedient. And that's what Noah did. Also, the 10 generations from Noah to Abraham suggest that the godlessness of these generations was also made complete. We know about Noah. We talked about Noah in the last parasha. Let us look a little about Abraham and his time. Let's see something. In Genesis chapter 1, we're going to begin. Then Adonai, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1, sorry. Then Adonai said to Abraham, "Get going out from your land and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land that I will show you." Why? Why should Abraham leave from his land, the Fertile Crescent, Ur of the Chaldees, where there was water, there was rivers, Euphrates River, the Tigris River, and a fertile land? It's called a Fertile Crescent. Why would he have to? Why is God telling him leave that land and go from your father's house to the land that I will show you? God says, my heart, verses 2, my heart desire is to make you into a great nation, to bless you. And therefore he had to leave, to make your name great so that you may be a blessing. God wanted Abraham to be a blessing and his seed to be a blessing to the nation, to be a great nation. God wanted to make Abraham a priestly nation, a nation separated, sanctified from all other nations. God said, my desire, this is God's desire. Now we want to know why God desired this towards Abraham. My desire is to bless you. I will bless them that bless you. My desire is to bless you, verse 3. My desire is to bless you, to bless those who bless you. But whoever curses you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. So the goal and the ultimate goal, God, Hashem, Elohim, wanted to make Abraham and his seed to be a blessing for the nations. And this is incredible. This is the way of redeeming humanity. And we're going to look at something in the days of Abraham. What was happening? Interestingly, Joshua mentioned something in Joshua chapter 24, verses 2 and 3. Then Joshua said to all the people, after they conquered the land, then Joshua said to all the people, verses 2, thus saith Adonai, thus says Adonai, God of Israel, from ancient times your fathers Terah, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor, lived beyond the river and worship other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through the entire land of Canaan and multiplied his offspring. I gave him Isaac. Then to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. So we can see that Terah and the brothers of Abraham, Nahor and his brothers, and all of them, they worship other gods. They worship gods on the other side. In that flood, they worship other gods. But Abraham was called out to worship the God of creation. So this is why he had to leave his father's house, because the fathers didn't want to leave their tradition. They didn't want to leave their... They still worship these gods. When you talked about Laban, Rebekah's, Isaac's wife, brother, Laban, he worshiped these idols. And we're going to read a little bit in the book of the book of Joshua chapter 9. We're going to read a little from verses 5 to get to know a little more details of how Terah and Abraham's brothers worship these gods. It says in Joshua 9 verses 5, and when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instructions of the Lord and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was, and Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time. You notice it says Noah and Shem, because Shem believed and worshiped the God that Noah, his father, worshipped, and the God of creation. But apparently, the other two brothers, Japheth and Ham, and their descendants, they did not. But Shem is also known by the sages to also be Melchizedek, the king of Salem, who appeared to Abraham. That's another name for Shem. And that's what the book of Joshua also says. That was Shem, Noah's son. And that's why Noah blessed Shem and said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem. Because Shem believed in the God of creation. Shem worshipped that one true God. God decided to make a special covenant with Abraham in a unique way. And it says, Abraham, and no man knew where Abraham was, and Abraham served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time, because they taught Abraham about the God of creation, the God who created Adam and Eve, and the righteous genealogy from Adam down to Noah. And Noah explained to Abraham. That's why he feared God so much and he knew so much about God. We're going to read more. Verses 5 in Joshua 9 verses 6 now. And Abraham was in Noah's house 39 years. And Abraham knew the Lord from 3 years old. And he went in the ways of the Lord until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the Lord, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his god, gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver, and the sons of men served them as they became their gods. So we can see where Japheth and Ham followed the grandsons and their sons in this worshipping of these other gods, because these men lived up to 900 years, 600 years, 500 years. So this is the situation here. Abraham was with Noah and Shem was the only ones that was worshiping the God of creation since after the flood. And therefore, God decided to bless this young man and call him out from his father's house. And this is important to understand. And the kings and his servants, Terah with his household, Abraham's father, and the king and all his servants, which was Nimrod was the king and all his servants, and Terah with all his household were then, Terah is Abraham's father, were then the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. And Terah, Abraham's father, had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly, and every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. And all the generation were wicked in the sight of the Lord, and they thus made every man his god, and they forsook the Lord God who created them. And this sounds very familiar to the time of Noah, when the generations once knew God, and then they start turning from the Lord and do wickedness, and the generations were wicked in the days of Noah, and therefore God raised up Noah to be that deliverer, and Noah found grace in the eyes of God. Here is the same thing. Abraham was the only one at the time with Noah and Seth who worshiped God, and all the other, his fathers, his brothers, they all worshiped the gods made of stone and wood. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew the Lord, for they served each man his own God, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under the counsel on his counsel knew the Lord in those days. And Abraham the son of Terah was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. So we can see in the midst of turmoil and darkness, in the midst of apostasy, in the midst of when they knew God, they did not glorify God as God. They instead, the mankind, the people of the days, they decide to create their own God and refuse to humble themselves like the youth and submit themselves. And therefore, God will use people that humble themselves. God will use people that submit themselves to His will. They will be the arm of the Lord. They'll be His arm where He's going to do mighty things. They'll be His battle axe. They'll be His weapons of war. And this is the beginning. This is why the Lord called Abraham out from his father's house. The book of Joshua gave a little more details than the Torah itself, but it's in line with Torah. You understand? So we just want to point this out to you, that Abraham had to come out from his father's house. Sometimes we are raised up, we are called out from different congregations, from customs and cultures and lifestyle that is against God. And sometimes you can stay there to serve the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You got to come out and you got to go across the river. Like Abraham had to leave Mesopotamia, go across the river, which where this is where the word Hebrew comes out, to go across the river. And that's why we have to do the mikveh, we have to do the tevilah, we have to do the baptism. Just like when Israel left Egypt, they had to go across the sea. Just like when the children of Israel was entering into Jordan, into Canaan, they had to go across the Jordan. And that's why in the book, in 1 Corinthians chapter, in the Brit Hadashah, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul said that they were all, our fathers, they all went under the clouds in the wilderness, and they was all passed through the sea. They were baptized in the sea. The church in the wilderness, the congregation, the Keilah in the wilderness, they was baptized in the sea. So you have to go through, that's the change. You have to be washed. You have to separate yourself. Today, a lot of us, we are in cultures, we are in religious practices that we have to leave behind. And sometimes we have to leave our parents, we have to leave our fathers, and take our family that we have influence and people that we have the responsibility over, like our children, people that we can influence. So Abraham had to do that. He had to leave his father's house. He had to leave his relative behind. Sometimes you have to leave his wealth behind, because he's called of God. Go for you. Go. Get you out from your land, God said. And from your relatives. And from your father's house. Because the fathers were worshiping these idols and they refused to change. To the land that I will show you. My heart's desire is to make you into a great nation, to bless you, to make your name great, so that you may be a blessing. A blessing to who? Just like how Noah was used to bless the world, to save humanity, Abraham is used to do the same. My desire is to bless those who bless you, but whoever curses you will be I will curse, God said. And in you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. So the idea and the ultimate goal is that Israel, Abraham and his children would be a blessing to the world. And we're going to see that throughout the entire Tanakh, throughout the Brit Hadashah, throughout the entire Bible. The children and throughout history, the children of Israel is a blessing to this world. And it's the apples of God's eye, and they are the light of the world. So Abraham did that. He was obedient. He left everything. And immediately when Abraham did that, there were some challenges. Trust me. There were some challenges, but these challenges is not to destroy Abraham. These challenges these tests and this challenge was to elevate him, was to lift him up. And sometimes when we make the right decision, we feel like we are isolated, we're left alone, but you got to believe God. You have to believe in your Creator, because He is faithful that promise, and He will advance you. He will exalt you. And that's what happened with Abraham. He was immediately tested. Another thing you want to see is that Lot, he saw the blessing of God in the life of Abraham. And something Lot did. Lot followed Abraham. Lot followed Abraham. And he was wise to do that. And Lot received the blessing because Lot decided, I'm going to bless Abraham. And God blessed Lot. We're going to see. So Abraham went, just as Adonai had spoken to him, verse 4. Also Lot went with him. Now Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran, that's Syria. Abraham took Sarah his wife, and Lot his nephew, and all the possession that they had acquired, and the people that they acquired in Haran. And they left to go to the land of Canaan, and they entered in the land of Canaan. And Abraham passed through the land as far as the place of Shechem, and as far as Moreh's big tree. Now, Abraham also influenced his servants and all the people that were with him. Abraham, that he got in Haran, they believed in the God of Abraham, and they followed Abraham, and they received the blessing. All that blessed Abraham will be blessed. Today, friends, if you do not bless Abraham and his seed, you will not be blessed from God. If you curse Abraham and his seed, you will be cursed from God. God is who said that. This is my heart's desire. This is what he said he will do. I will bless them that bless. So be very careful what you say and do towards Abraham and his seed. Be very careful, because God already pronounced this, and God cannot lie. So Lot followed Abraham. But look at what happened. Look at what happened. There was a famine in the land of Egypt, in the land that God sent Abraham, in the land of Canaan. There was a famine in the land. So why would God tell Abraham, leave the Fertile Crescent, leave his land, and go to this land in Egypt, go to the land of Canaan, and now there is a famine in the land? It's a test. What would Abraham do? So Abraham went down to Egypt to live as an outsider there, because the famine was severe in the land where God told him to go. Just as he was about to enter Egypt, he said something. Now, this is something for us to realize. This test was not to destroy Abraham or to break Abraham. This was a path for Abraham to be exalted, to be known by the kings, for the kings to know that he is a prophet. And we're going to see something here. When there is famine and when things are not working out in our lives, we have to seek God and try to understand what God is doing, because this test is not to destroy you, it's to lift you up. So in the midst of this test, look at what happened to Abraham. When Abraham decided to go down to Egypt, he went down. So when the Egyptians, he told his wife, listen, you're beautiful, and I see how men looks at you. You're attractive. And we're going to read that. It says in verses 11, just as when he was about to go down to Egypt, he said to Sarah, his wife, look, please, I know that you are an attractive woman. So when the Egyptians see you, they'll say, this is my wife. And they will kill me. But you, they'll let live. Please say that you are my sister, so that I'll be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. Abraham saw this like a vision. Abraham had insight from God. Abraham was aware of his surroundings, because you know that the Egyptians do not fear God, because all of them worship their gods. They worship idols. So he know where he's going. He know the situation. So he told him, he was wise. And Sarah was indeed his sister. So he wasn't lying. But he told the Egyptians all that they needed to know. They didn't need to know everything. And what Abraham did, when Abraham came to Egypt, the Egyptians did see the woman was very beautiful. And indeed, Pharaoh's officials saw her, and they raved about her to Pharaoh. Just as he said, so it was done. Then the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Exactly. But Abraham was treated well for her sake, and he got sheep, cattle, male, donkey, male, and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. So you see here, in the midst of the famine, Abraham got riches. Now imagine when the people see Abraham come with all this wealth back to Canaan. It's a famine and you're coming back with wealth? And look what happened to Abraham also with all this wealth he accumulated from Pharaoh. But Adonai struck Pharaoh and his household with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So the Lord is manifesting his power and blessing Abraham, and all those that do anything against him, the Lord is punishing them now. The Lord is proving to Abraham his promise, because he said this, but okay, Lord, this is the opportunity. God is using this opportunity to prove to Abraham and to demonstrate to Abraham his faithfulness towards him. And therefore, it was manifest. The Lord struck him and showed Pharaoh. So Pharaoh called Abraham and said, "What's this that you did to me? Why didn't you tell me that she is your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now here is your wife. Take her and go." Why did Abraham do that? Why did he, in a sense, deceive Pharaoh or withhold some truth from Pharaoh? Tell him half of the truth, because they do not fear God. You cannot tell everything to everybody. You got to tell them what they can handle, what they should know. Because he was right. They could have killed him, and they perhaps would have tried to kill him. But look at the situation. Why did you say she is my sister? The Lord stepped in and showed Abraham the favor and let Pharaoh know and all of Egypt that this man is my prophet, my servant. This man is my prophet. And Pharaoh instructed the men concerning Abraham, and they expelled him and his wife, with his wife and everything that belongs to him. So Abraham left Egypt with all that wealth and with the respect from the king of Egypt and also from the Egyptian citizens, knowing that he is a man of God. Do not touch him, because you will be plagued. You will be cursed if you touch him, because the God of his God will defend him. His God will plague you. His God will punish you. And this God wanted to manifest to Abraham all the promises that he made to him in these verses. Abraham, my heart desire is to make you a great nation, to bless you, to make your name great. God wanted to make Abraham's name great. So he brought him to Egypt. And he manifests the greatness of Abraham so that you may be a blessing. My desire is to bless those who bless you. But whoever curses you, I will curse. Pharaoh take his wife. Unknowingly, it's okay. But the Lord plagued him to demonstrate to Pharaoh that this is my prophet, and don't do the normal wickedness you would administrate or you would do to a regular man. Don't touch this guy. If you touch this guy, you're in trouble with me. So the Lord manifested this favor to Abraham. And I want you to know that if the Lord is for you, who can be against you? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Obey the Lord. Walk with the Lord. Serve the Lord. He will protect you. And every time there is a test, this test is to lift you up, is to exalt you, is to elevate you. The Lord is going to use that situation to show you favor and for people to know that you are the seed which the Lord have blessed because you're serving him. I leave this with you in Yeshua's name. Amen. Bye-bye.